I'm putting this up now because tomorrow is Friday. I have something to do. So it's this is the first part of a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1953. 53, maybe it was 52. Tafshin Yud Gimel, given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. It's in Yiddish, but I'll translate it. It's talking about Chanuka. The mitzvah from Chanuka, the commandment of Chanuka is anzünden Licht, is to light candles. Undoubtedly, the most popular commandment in Judaism is lighting the candles of Hanukkah. Everybody does it. Everybody knows about it, at least. Is Lindikin. How do you make light? How do you make fire? You take oil, or the hals, or a piece of wood, something flammable. This means a gashmistic kazach, a physical thing. Warmt, you heat it up, bis es wird oisgashmi until it stops being physical and transforms to be fire. It burns up. On Hoitan it begins to lichten. It illuminates its surrounding. Huh? So take a piece of wood, take a piece of cloth and oil, and you bring it into the dark place. It doesn't do anything. It's dark. As soon as you light it, so it becomes fire, and the fire consumes the wood, but it makes everything light around and warm, so it transforms. The licht, the fire, was meant, which we light in Chanukah, from the licht comes is from the lights was menflekt sinim, which they used to light in the Holy Temple. But it's a memory for them, and it's also a continuation. In Beit HaMikdash, in the Holy Temple, Fleckman Yeder Nacht, every night, they would light candles. They would light the candles. I'm sure you all saw pictures of the menorah that were in the Holy Temple. It was in the Holy Temple, so it had 7 branches to it. One was in the middle and 3 stuck out on the sides. And according to most opinions, they were straight. And the last thing in the day that they would do in the Holy Temple served just ended at about 2:00 in the afternoon, something like that. And the last thing they would do, the very last thing, was to light all 7 lights, and that would remain lit the whole night. And in the morning, usually all of them would have gone out except for the last one. One remained lit all the time. In any case, they lit them in the nighttime. So back in the Holy Temple, there was the menorah. And in the menorah, they lit the candles, and they lit it in the nighttime. But and that's why we light the Hanukkah candles now, to remind us of the big miracle that the Greeks had defiled the temple, and the Maccabees conquered the Greeks, drove them out, and lit the candles again, and they couldn't find any oil. They only found one little bottle, and it lit and it was night for 1 day, and it lit for 8 days. Okay, it wasn't exactly that, but you'll see. That's the story that's the popularized story of it. But in the insight in the time of the miracle of Chanukah is Nitkeven Kain Reina Boimel. They looked in the temple, and they didn't find any pure oil to tzinden, to light up these lights. In other words, there was oil. We said this before. The Greeks did not destroy the temple. They didn't break the menorah, the candelabra. They didn't pour out the oil. They just defiled it. They opened up all the bottles. That's all. But in any case, the Jews refused to use anything less than the best, purest oil. And so they looked around, and the Eibishter God made a miracle. And first of all, the miracles, they found one bottle that had not been defiled. but there was only enough in that bottle for one day. Und men hat gefunden a pachshem. They found one bottle that was pure, sealed with the seal of the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, a Kriegel Reina Boimel, one vessel of pure oil, und verziegelt mitten, it was sealed with the seal of the high priest. The high priest, that was one miracle. Because there's a question that's always asked: how long was the miracle? It was 8 days of miracles, right? 8 days of miracles. So they say, one second, just 1 minute. It was not 8 days of miracles. It was 7 days of miracles, because they found a bottle which was enough for 1 day. So they found enough for 1 day. So in other words, that oil lasted 1 day. That wasn't a miracle. That was natural. So the miracle was that it lasted 7 more days. So the miracle was only 7 days. So there's a lot. This is a question that's asked by the Beit Yosef. It's asked by others. So there's a lot of different answers that are given to this. One of the answers is that after the 8 days, they saw that all the oil was still there. So in other words, the oil never burned. Another answer is that every day only 1/8 of the oil burned, and it was sufficient. Usually 1/8 of the oil was sufficient for 1/8 of the day, because one bottle of oil was enough for 1 day. So 1/8 was enough for it. But no, 1/8 lasted for 1 full day. So that happened 8 times. That's another. There are other, but the miracle we're saying over here is that the fact that they found the bottle of oil at all, that was a miracle. So that counts for the first days. And then the other 7 days, that's counted. So the first day was not a miracle that the oil lit, because there was enough for 1 day. But the miracle was that they found the bottle in the first place. So that's one of the answers. That's one of the answers. Okay. So in any case, they did find a bottle of oil. The whole thing was big miracles. They found one bottle of oil, and that bottle was sealed, so they knew for sure that it was pure oil. And they lit it, and it was only enough for 1 day, and it lasted for 8 days. Good. Oh. Okay. The boimel, the oil, so sometimes, they did a wonderful job in this book. They put everything up, but once in a while it's slanted, so that's all right. We'll do with it. The boimel, the oil, was in pach, in this bottle, is given genug, is only enough for 1 day. Was geshan, but it happened on a miracle. On his hot brand, it lasted for 8 days. Is zum dik from their nays. So in order to make a sign for this miracle, it happened that sin men licht, we light candles today, all night, 8 nights of Chanuka. So says the Rebbe, but there's a big difference between the lights that we light now and the lights that are in the Holy Temple. Notwithstanding the fact that we light the lights of Chanuka represents the lights from the Holy Temple, but nevertheless, they are different in several ways. If you want to make it the same thing as a remembrance for the temple, so make it as similar as possible. But here we see that the rabbis, and in general, the laws that the rabbis made up, the Torah tells the rabbis they have to make laws. So really the laws of the rabbis really come from the Torah. But when they do make laws, the rabbis, they try to make it as similar to the laws of the Torah as possible. Here's a big exception. What do we see? Several things. Number one, in the Holy Temple is all the time was the same number of lights. There was only 7 sticks, 7 branches, and in the nighttime they would light all 7 of them. So it was always the same number that they would light, 7. The kegen, but on the other hand, Chanuka light is every night is different. We light first night 1, second night 2. In Beit HaMikdash, that's one difference. That in the Holy Temple, the numbers was the same, and outside it's always increasing. Okay, number 2. In Beit HaMikdash in the Holy Temple, Fleckman and Sindin, the Licht, the lights would be lit in the daytime. Like I said, it was the last thing that was done in the Holy Temple, the last service after all the sacrifices and everything. The last service that was done in the Holy Temple was the lights. They would light the lights, and when the service stopped was about 2:00, 2:30, whatever in the afternoon. It was stopped. So the lights of Chanukkah were lit in the daytime, and they had to put enough oil so that it would last in the nighttime. But in the Holy Temple, there was lit. The lights were in the daytime. Then is noch given good licht. It was light outside. Aber Chanukkah licht, but the lights that we light now, we light it in the nighttime. The Zun forget after the sun has set. Nowadays. So in the Holy Temple, the candles were lit in the daytime, and then we light them in the nighttime. Okay, so we have two differences. In the Holy Temple was the same number of lights, and we increase every night. And in the Holy Temple was lit in the daytime, we light in the night. Third difference. Narrow to Migdash Zayin and Gavin in, one second, I gotta move this thing over. 1 second, 1 minute. Narrow to Migdash, the lights of the Holy Temple, Zayin and Gavin were in vain lit inside. Uneros Chanukah, and the lights of Chanukah, is mitzvah laniach al petach beito mi b'chutz. In Joyson, there is a commandment to light them outside. There is, according to Kabbalah, and a lot of people do this, Chabad also does, we light it inside, but it has to at least be shining outside. It has to be, ideally, that people outside can see it. It has to be in the doorway. But there is a mitzvah to light the Chanukah candles outside. There is in Jerusalem, you see, they have these glass cases, and they put it inside the glass cases. We do according to Kabbalah, others do it inside of the house, opposite the mezuzah on one side. Okay, but nevertheless, you can put the Chanukah candles outside, which was a thing which was not done ever in the Holy Temple. The menorah was always done inside. Even more, it was done in a place where nobody could see it in the Holy Temple. So that's the third difference. The third difference is that Nerotz Chanukah can be lit outside of your house, and the lights of the Holy Temple had to be lit inside. Okay, another difference. Mitzvahs Neros and Mishkan, the mitzvah of lighting the candles in the Holy Temple was in a time when the Jews were they were complete. There was no problems physically. They had the Holy Temple. God was giving them everything. That was when they had the Holy Temple. Special is their site, especially in the time when there was the tabernacle in the desert. Then the Jews had everything that they needed. Bread came down from heaven, water came from a rock. They were protected by clouds went around them that also kept their clothes clean and fresh. They never had to change their clothes. And these clouds went with them and protected them. So if so, when the lights that they lit in the tabernacle in the desert, they were always the same number, and they were lit inside, and they were lit in the daytime. And also the time when they were lit was very peaceful. They had no problems. The mitzvah, also the same thing as the Holy Temple. It was in the days of King Solomon, etc., when there was Holy Temple. The Jews were holy. Let's see. There was no wars with the Jewish people, exactly the opposite. When the time of the Holy Temple, especially in the time of King Solomon, says that every person was under his own vine, and every person was under his own fig tree. There was plenty. It was bountiful physically, which the Zelber also spiritually. In the time of the temple, because there was no physical worries. Why? Because that comes from the fact that in the time of the temple, spiritually the Jews were very high level. Everybody did Torah. Everyone did the commandments. And Everyone was involved in Jewish things, which is not the case in the time of Chanuka. In the time of Chanuka was connected with a time that was terrible for the Jews. They were under the rulership of the Greeks. And the Jewish army was very small. It says it was only 13 people in the whole army. All the other Jews, they sided with the Greeks. Like I said, the Greeks were very compatible to Jewish personality. They were wise. They loved fun. They loved art. They loved music. They loved the plays, productivity, originality. They loved the sports. And the Jews, they said, wait, we don't have anything in the religious world like this. Let's be like the Greeks. They'll also do the Torah, but the Greeks first. So we saw in the time of the lights of Hanukkah that the Jews were in a very difficult situation politically and financially and spiritually. And spiritually also, as we said that the Greeks defiled the oil, they defiled even the Holy Temple. All these differences that we just said, that the lights of Hanukkah are changing. In the temple, they were always the same. The lights of Hanukkah are lit outside. In the temple, they were lit inside. The lights of Hanukkah are in a time of difficulty. They started when the Greeks were in the temple. Everything was calm. Everything was beautiful. The lights of Hanukkah are lit in the nighttime, and in the Holy Temple, they were lit in the daytime. All these differences, they're connected one with the other. B'shas is good in Gashmis. One is good physically, and therefore this stems from being good spiritually. For room, because when a Jew has possessions, as he gives with an open hand, and he gives charity to others. And when you give charity, so God gives to you. And then you don't have to have any war. You don't have to have any self-sacrifice. In the time of the temple, it was plenty. There was no worries. There was no challenges. Done is genug. Then it's enough that every day everything can be the same. Everything can be the same. You don't have to increase in your holiness. The same thing, the candles in the time of the temple, every day it was the same. You don't have to add anything on, add any new powers. Also, you don't have to make any efforts to illuminate the street. You could light the candles inside. You didn't have to light them outside like we do. The street outside of the Holy Temple, outside of your house in the world, is nit finster. In the time of the temple, it wasn't dark spiritually. The menorah, Brent says the menorah was lit in the Holy Temple, and automatically it illuminated the outside. You didn't have to put any emphasis on the outside world, because the outside world was already fixed up. But in the sight from the Shver, when it is difficult for the Jews, excuse me, let's do this here. But in the time when it is difficult, in a difficult situation, when nit nor b'milchama, and not only having the war with the Greeks, but also they had to make the war with the Jews that had been Hellenized, which it seems, according to history, was about 99% of the Jews, that they didn't want any trouble with the Greeks. Exactly the opposite. They wanted to join the Greeks. The Greeks were very compatible people. But because of Zion and Gavan, Zion and Yidden, there were certain Jews which they had nit gehalten from Beis Hamikdash. They didn't really excited about the Holy Temple. Nit gehalten from Selbstständigkeit. They didn't want any sort of independence. and they wanted to ois milerin mit the Yavanim. They wanted to melt in with the Greeks. So therefore, in the time of the Holy Temple, everything was wonderful. The Jews had their identity; they knew what a Jew was. But in that little brief time in the middle of the Second Temple, when the Greeks took over, so suddenly Jewish identity was nothing to really be happy about. The Jews, the Greeks were ruling the world, and the Jews wanted to be winners. They wanted to be on the winning side. So it was very difficult spiritually, and it was very difficult physically because the Greeks ruled over the land of Israel. But therefore, God, He gave the commandment of Chanuka in such a terrible time that you have to have self-sacrifice. Okay, so what does that mean? It means all of these differences in the time of the temple when everything was good, that is reflected in how they lit the candles. They lit the candles inside of the temple. They lit the same number all the time. They lit the candles in the daytime, right? They didn't have to increase the number of candles. Azoi also in the time is veinik, it's right, is veinik as men zolmachen lichtig by zich when it's difficult times outside, when you're in the time when the Greeks are ruling, so you can't be complacent. You can't just suffice with the same number of lights all the time or just light inside of your house. You have to challenge the darkness. You have to challenge Greek rulership. You can't just suffice with being a Jew in your house. The room, oifen gas in the street time, in the street, it's difficult, it's dark. When the finsternis and the darkness in the street can also come into your house as darfman licht, and therefore you have to you have to make a special effort to light up the street as well. Therefore, you light the Chanuka candles. That's now. Now we're in the time of darkness. We don't have a holy temple, so therefore you have to light the candles in a way that they can be lit outside, or at least that's the law, that they can be put outside. Then she is fished when it's because it's darkness. Therefore you have to put the candles near your door in order that it can light out up the outside. And it's also not sufficient. Is wenig. It's not enough. Was licht that you light only by yourself and then put it on the table or whatever, and where you eat or where you write your study, something like that. That's not good enough. Why? Because nor men darf, you have to light up the put your candles near the door. You have to make it some effort somehow or other that you can light up the outside world. So this is very novel things that the Rebbe is saying, because religious Judaism was their goal was to be insulated from the world. And that was to them a very big achievement, that the world had no effect on them. And so the Rebbe is saying that it's a good point. It's really a good point in the time when there's the Holy Temple, in the time when the world is a holy place. But now, when it's not, so it's not just enough that you are not affected by the world. You have to be what they call proactive. You have to affect the world. You have to light up the world. Oichen venik, it's not enough also the same number. You can't do the same work all the time. You can't light the same number of lights all the time. The room can men zich nit benugen. You cannot suffice with. You cannot suffice, and it's to be in such a. How is it? The room men can nit benugen. You cannot suffice mit dem was is nit geworden nidriker. You can't suffice with just the fact that you're not falling down and you're staying on the same level all the time. Just that I'm not affected by the world. That's good enough. I'm not falling down. That, says the Rebbe, it's not enough nowadays. Nor men darf gan. You always have to increase more and more light. The Sachakol. So what's the conclusion from all this? The conclusion is this. In the time when it's dark outside and its great darkness, is darfen nit mispoiled. You should not be intimidated by the darkness which is in the street. Nor adrabah, exactly the opposite. Men darf gehen mit der mesirus nefesh. You have to go with self-sacrifice. Beleuchten the gas, lighting up the world. Jeder tag, and every day, zugeven, adding on a little bit more light, a little more positivity, a little more blessing in the world. Bis men wird bring it until you can look around and find pure oil, and illuminate the whole world with it. Und der Eufen in this way is the darf sein. It has to be number one. Men darf sich nit benugen. You can never suffice with the same number of candles that you lit yesterday. Nor men darf alam tell you have to always increase a little more Torah, a little more kindness, a little more commandments, a little more charity. Heint in Einlich, today you can light one candle, tomorrow two, and etc. until etc. and etc. You have to start with and said aneben bald mit der Sach can men doch nit springen mit amol. You shouldn't start off with 8 candles. You start off with a very small, whatever is in your ability, but you have to immediately know that you have to add on more every single day. It has to come from you. So don't bite off too much. But on the other hand, you should definitely increase. Number one. So therefore, now we add on. Add on lights. Add on. Number two. Now in the time of darkness of exile, you cannot suffice with the fact that you light up your house. And so automatically you figure that'll light up the streets. No, it's not enough. You have to make an effort to not just be concerned with your own spiritual welfare, but also with the welfare of others. And when you do that, it'll be more assured your own service of the creator of the universe. Number three, der Zugav zu dem darf mit Mesirat Nefesh, the whole gang, the Zugang, your whole attitude has to be one of self-sacrifice. You're not doing it because you want to do it. You're doing it because God wants you to do it. It's very good if you want to also, but it means doing a little bit more than what you want. A zoy vir the Indian, like a miracle. A miracle is above nature, as therefore me cooked oif im mit a kruma oig. Darf nit misspell. If people look at you with in a negative way. Who are you? You're trying to influence me. People look at you in a critical and in a negative way. Don't worry about it. You should go with self-sacrifice. A rois sufirin the shlichus, doing the purpose for which God put you in the world. Und das mont men by yeder. This is demanded by every Jew. You have to try to light up the outside. You have to increase all the time. Lighting. You have to light up even when it's in the nighttime. So it says even the nighttime. There is always, and you have to know, as is on, every Jew has to know that he is an ambar error. He is an like a lamplighter from God. Let me make this bigger. Sorry, let's see. 1 second. 1 minute. 1 minute. Second. There we go. But and I'm sorry. Wrong word. I used the wrong word. He is an ambassador, an ambassador from God. Every Jew. You are an emissary, an ambassador, a representative of the creator of the universe to Varnum, to warm up the physical world, your part in the world, and illuminating your surrounding. So therefore, you have to learn from the lights of Chanuka. You have to be increasing all the time. You have to light up even in the middle of the darkness. And der Eufen, and the way that you do it is nit benugen, and never to be satisfied mit was, which the fact that you have oif Ge ton, to do what you don't be never be satisfied with what you did yesterday. Nor all the talk, but every day you have to add on a little more light, a little more Judaism, a little more Torah. Mendar vision, you have to know was mehat oivketan, what you did yesterday, in order. First of all, you have to know what you did yesterday. In order, you have to know how much you have to add on today. Them vague, and when you go in this way that you want to be increasing all the time, as men gate with the Mesiris Nefesh, you go with self-sacrifice. As you are never satisfied with making just a little bit of light or just illuminating by yourself, saving your own self. Und men benugen sich nicht damit, and not only with what you have done yesterday, hat men dem zugab, you have to add on all the time, und sof, and finally in the end, and it will be so that you will actually light up the whole entire world, as werd lichtig und gas, to light up even the street, when allemal and all the time with more and more light. Bis men gefindt shemen Torah, until you find pure light to light up the whole entire holy temple. So in other words, the purpose of the Jewish people is not to preserve the Jewish people or to benefit the Jewish people or to sustain the Jewish people. Those are good things. They're good things. But the purpose of the Jewish people is much more than that. Like Abraham, to change the whole entire world by adding on more light, by lighting up even in the middle of the darkness, by lighting up the street and thinking about the street. And that was what the lesson of Chanuka is for us today.